We are going to begin the webinar on the traffic monitoring and management system. And we have with us as presenters today Dave Gardner and Lindsay Flum from Tech Services Traffic Monitoring Section. So Dave and Lindsay, are you ready to take things away?
Good morning, Victoria. Can you hear me okay?
I can hear you.
All right, great, thanks. Hey, everybody. This is Dave Gardner, and with me, as Victoria said, I have Lindsay Flum and Becky Salek of our traffic monitoring section. So just to get things started here, the intent of this webinar is to give you really a broad overview of our new traffic monitoring management system. The slides that I want to show here, I want to go through the slides briefly, but for those that are not regular users of traffic data, I'd like to go and kind of give it just a quick overview of what our section does and really some of the things that we've done in the past as far as the processing side of data. So let's get rolling here. I'll go through these slides. There's a few of them, and then we'll do a presentation of the actual website itself, show you how to get to it, and just some basic commands on how to access some of the data. So most of you that are on the line here know that our section is responsible for collecting all the count data across the state. This data is used to support our traffic monitoring program. We use it to submit to Federal Highway for TMMS reporting purposes, for studies, as you all know, for the work that's being done in the districts. So we do that by basically collecting road tube counts. As you can see here, obviously we've set those throughout a number of your districts. That is really the bulk of our program. We're setting about 5,000, 6,000, 7,000 a year, depending upon the counties that we're in, and do that on a 3-year cycle for the most part. In addition to that, we have a permanent count program that's used to then generate adjustment factors that then are applied to those short-term counts. And then we have our special request program, which a number of you are familiar with doing special request road tube counts, for doing turning movement counts and such for a lot of the studies that you work on. So obviously this is kind of a rundown here of counts that we take throughout the state. On the 3-year cycle, as I mentioned, majority of them are done on the state system of roads, our ramps across the state, which add up to about 14, and that's probably, that number needs to be adjusted. I think it's a little bit higher right now. So it's about 14,000 counts that we collect on a 3-year cycle. But in addition to that, we've made an effort to start collecting a lot more data down on the local roadways. And primarily that use is for our TMMS program. We not only have to report out what we're doing on the state system of roads, but we have to provide an estimate of ADT down on our local roads, which our state system of roads covers about 20,000 miles of centerline miles in the state. Well, our local roadways, they cover about 100,000 miles. So it's obviously a lot of area that needs to be covered with counts. So we've begun to collect more and more data ourselves as ODOT on those locals, but then we're also receiving, as you look down there, a number of counts from our county engineers and our MPOs to supplement that, which gets us in the ballpark of about 45,000, 46,000 locations that are in our system. So it's grown substantially over the years, and we're looking to continue that growth to provide more and more data across our system. Our permanent count program, obviously not as big as the short term. These are the sites that sit and collect data 24 hours a day, 365 days a year. We have about 165 running sites right now, and looking to put in close to about 180. But actually that number is going to go up. We're currently working on a contract to install some non-intrusive sensors across the state. So our intent is to increase that number substantially, hopefully, and help us out with areas for permitted lane closure, for the PIAC, for a number of areas. So it's up and coming, and we're currently working on another contract here to install these non-intrusive sensors as well across the state. So all the data that has come in historically through the section, we've really processed this information and using multiple systems, and thus was the intent of moving towards kind of a centralized type data processing system. So obviously you can imagine with 45,000 locations coming in, processing that data is challenging sometimes. So we used to do this with, and again I'm showing you a slide here of how we used to. We actually had a access database, and we had an application written specifically for that access database, and all the adjustment factors were inserted as part of tables, and then we process it through the access file, and then it would be stored as an access database. In the end, and I'll talk just a little bit, in the end all this was done manually then to assign to the segments that you see in the traffic survey report, or did see in the traffic survey report. So it was heavily dependent upon a manual effort that Darren Swingle in our section has done for many, many years. So the MS2 system is meant to help consolidate a lot of this and make the process a lot more efficient. For our permanent count data, and this is one area that we really didn't do a good job of making this information available to all you out there as customers, we processed this all through our what we called our TKO system, and this was a client server setup by our ODOT IT. This was a system we initiated back in 2006 and processed all of our permanent count data. The system allowed us to use all the data quality checks. We set up quality checks for each one of the systems, or for each one of the sites, and it allowed us to insert all the data, and it spit out QC errors and so forth. So the folks that were doing all the processing could see all the anomalies that were going on and decide whether we needed to approve that day or discard it. So all that was stored in the TKO system. And again, this was one area that we hadn't done a really good job on of making this information available, and we had to do a lot of this manually for those of you that were requesting reports from us from a permanent count standpoint. We also relied on the mainframe. So as you can see, we had up to now, three separate systems. We also utilized the mainframe for all of our weigh in motion data coming off our weigh in motion sites. So it would be downloaded off of the site out in the field. It would go through the actual TKO program I just showed you, but then it was stored, all the weigh in motion data, all the data that passed quality checks would be stored out in our mainframe. So it was kind of the TKO system was kind of a pass-through, and from the mainframe standpoint, it would then be stored there as a flat file, and then we had all of our reporting capabilities set up within the system. But in addition to that, on the mainframe, the traffic survey report that you saw out there, this was entered into the mainframe as well. And so you can see down here, these were separate lines in the mainframe itself. And so all the data that I showed you back on that access file, all this then was manually entered into this mainframe file, which then a report was generated, or that final report that you typically saw out in the old traffic survey report. A very inefficient way of doing it. It takes time and lots of effort to compile all this information and put it into the system. So it's just time for a change. So as I mentioned, obviously with the traffic survey report, this is what a lot of you or most of you are familiar with, and this is what our final product was. Well, this is an output of that mainframe screen that I just showed you. So this shows you sections of road and gives you the ADT for each one of those sections of road by county, by roadway number. But in addition to that, we also created a traffic flow map that you can see over here. And I apologize, this may be a little bit hard to read, but for those of you that have used this before, you have the understanding of what I'm looking at here and what our products have been over the years. So what we try to do as well out on our webpage is not only provide you with the traffic survey report and the traffic flow maps, we also put out our short-term count hourly data and our AADT data. And basically the intent of that was to give you all of our count locations by station numbers, all the ADTs associated with it, and then all the hourly data. Again, not a very, in my mind, a very user-friendly way of making information available to all of our customers. So that's why we did some looking around. Part of the reasons we were switching to MS2 is to, one, the mainframe it's on its, not necessarily its last leg, but they're looking to do away with that, and so they want to get all of our weight and motion data off of it, as well as all of our, obviously our traffic survey report data would go along with it. So we had to find another option to go with our WIM data, as well as our client server was due for an upgrade, our TKO system, for some of the things we wanted to incorporate. So looking at our options, we decided upon the MS2 system. It seemed to work well for what we're trying to do here at ODOT and move us forward with consolidation, the data integrity, different items like that. So we've been working on it for quite some time, and it seems to be working well for us for right now from a data processing standpoint. It's obviously a cloud-based system. It offers our traffic count database. We've recently just incorporated traffic count segments into it and finished up the HPMS process for this year, and there'll be more to come within the system in regards to these segments. Segments are meant to emulate very much so what the traffic survey report did. So we have them out there and have really just started to work with them. In the future here as well, we have a new contract coming up with putting in the turning movement counts into the system, and we're also adding in a bike and pedestrian module. And large amount of that data, we're not going to necessarily collect this as an ODOT system, but we're going to allow the MPOs and whoever else, county engineers, any of the public agencies, to add in their data into this system. So all this will be available to everyone within the same system within MS2. So as I mentioned, some of the benefits of it have been consolidating our processing, our storage, our reporting for all of our short-term counts, our permanents, and then eventually here all of our turning movement counts. But really the behind-the-scenes information, or the behind-the-scene processes that a lot of you don't see, of generating the factors, assigning counts to segments, generating the VMTs, that's what this system does for us that makes it so much more efficient. It takes a lot of that manual effort out and automates this, and it's so far been a big help for us. It's a lot of work, and getting it implemented so far, we're not completely there yet, but we're working on it, and it's so much more efficient than what we had before. So let me talk a little bit then. I'm not going to go through all these slides. I'm going to go ahead and move to the actual website itself and how to get access to it. So give me a second here. Let's see, secure desktop share. Can you see that?
I see the presentation.
Yes, we can see it, your desktop. Now we see
Can
the
you see the
ODOT
web page
portal.
now?
Yes.
All right, excellent. Okay, so for those of you that want to access the system, obviously there's numbers of ways to get into all of our pages, and there's multiple ways, and maybe not so friendly ways to get to everywhere you want. But from our internal ODOT portal, the best way, in my opinion, is to hit miscellaneous resources. Actually, there's the page that you see when you open up our portal. If you click on miscellaneous resources and then hit our traffic monitoring products under technical services data, that takes you to our main technical services webpage. And here we have a TMMS selection box here for you to hit. It gives you, as a customer, just a brief overview of what the, description of what the system looks like. And then you can hit this hyperlink to get into the system. So let me show you just real quick, I'm not going over this quite yet. Let me just show you as a outside person, because I know a lot of you get requests from the public, and the best way to access it from our main web page. How I would do this, and again, this is one of most likely many ways to do this, is I would go to our divisions drop-down page, planning, division offices, and technical services, and basically takes you to that same page. That's a lot of clicks, obviously. What I'm hoping to do is get at least a direct link for our traffic monitoring page out on the front page of the ODOT web page. So that should help a lot of you that respond to requests, from the public, from consultants and so forth, to get access to this count data. So we'll work on that and try to make it a little bit easier for everyone to get into this page. So again, hitting the TMS hyperlink and starting the page. As I mentioned, this is a point-based system, and what I mean by that, it's what you'll see over here on the map. You've got a map on the right-hand side, and then basically a data page on the left. Are you able to see my cursor right there as I go across there? So an easy way, if someone wants data for this, is on the map, just basically zooming in. And a way to do that is just to hit the plus key up here to zoom in. And when you zoom in, basically you'll start seeing all these blue squares. And those represent all of our account locations around the state. And the listing above them is the ADT and the year of the data. So for anyone that wants access to this, you have access to this, the public has access to this, they're seeing this exact page and seeing the same information. So that's one easy way of getting access to the data. And I'll show here in just a little bit, I'll go through some of the functions here on this left-hand side page of quick search, advanced search, map search, and so forth. But one thing I wanted to mention is you'll notice that one thing we've worked on in the system is you'll see a lot of 2015 data. So we're working in the system now to do an annual process, and all the data out here is going to be 2015, or it's going to be, you're going to see 2016 data out there for any of the data that's been collected so far for this count season. So the intent of that is we're getting to a common year. We want to try to display a common year of data for our customers. It aligns us with HPMS requirements as well, providing a common year of data within the HPMS program. And the actual year of the data that it was count is available as well as part of the information page for each of the count stations. So let me talk a little bit about some of the way of accessing the data. So if you look over here on the left-hand side of the page, basically you'll see all these tabs. You've got a quick search tab, which allows you to then search on a specific county, a community, a road location, an actual count location, which is the location ID, and the count year of data. And I'll go through some specific examples here as I go along in the presentation. You also have an advanced search tab, which gives you a lot more detailed type information that's not on the quick search. So you can determine, or you can decide on, obviously again from the quick search, county, community. You can determine a route all the route numbers for within the state itself. Is it a permanent station? Do you want to search on just permanent stations? You want just a way in motion station? You want to do a search on functional classification? That's what the advanced search allows you to do. You want to know, or do you want to do a search on counts and when they were taken at a specific time? These are some of the advanced search features, and I'm not going to necessarily go through all of them, but you should go through and try to familiarize yourself. Down the road here, we intend to put together maybe more advanced type search or a class on doing some of these options within the system, but I'm not going to go through a lot of these advanced search options today. You also have a map search capability. And a lot of those capabilities are I'll go through, it basically describes some of the tools you can use on these items over here on the right-hand side by the map window. And then you also have a tools area where you can build your own search, what allows you then to, by specific criteria, you can search by a specific field that's listed in the database. And then once you select one of these, you can type in the information that you're looking to do for that specific search. So as you can see here, I'm going to move over to the right-hand side and into the map area. Very similar in interactions to the Google Map attributes, and similar to what you've been seeing as well in TIMS and some of the functions. You can notice, or you notice that the screen is split down the middle. If you want to see more of the map, you can hit these arrows up here to the left, and it gives you a complete map view of an area. Again, a Google Map look and feel. Stations are assigned by lat longs, as well as they have a NLFID and log point, our linear referencing system attribute, for each one of these locations within the system. You can pan the map side to side, up and down, obviously. Zoom in and out by hitting the plus and minus button. Zoom in as well by double-clicking the area. One thing you cannot do, and one thing we're working with them and are certainly lobbying for, is the ability to use your scroller bar on your mouse to move that in and out. You currently cannot do that, and it's a technical issue that we've been discussing with them that doesn't allow that to occur within the system. But you still have the ability to use the plus and minus side and zoom in and out on the system. You can switch between the map view. Do you want a satellite view? A little bit more detail in the area that you're looking at. You can zoom in as well, and then use the street view option just by selecting this little guy, and just the way it's done in the Google Map. Yeah, easier said than done. There we go. So same functionality. Allows you to see the same information that's out on the street view. And to close this, just hit the close street view hyperlink. So again, you're seeing count locations on the map, and then the ability to enter in a specific address area. You can type in an address for a specific count location. Another way of doing a search. Very helpful for someone who's asking for a count at a specific address location. Just as an example, I'm going to type in, obviously I've typed this in before, our address here at ODOT Central Office, 1980 West Broad Street. Hit the locate button, and it gives you an arrow there at our location. The tools drop down. Primarily what you'll be using within the tools drop down then are the TCDS hyperlink. This allows you can turn on and off all your TCDS locations, which are your count locations. You want to see all of your stations? Do you want to see just continuous? Do you want to just see short-term counts? Do you want to see way in motion? So as an example, if I hit the continuous option and I zoom out, it should update the layers with all of our continuous count stations for around the state. So a quick broad view of seeing all the continuous count stations that we have loaded into the system. Do I want to see just weigh in motion? Obviously very few of those, we know that, but it still gives you the option of being able to see all of them on a map view. Going back to all, give it a second to update here. As I mentioned, above the station you see an ADT with the year of that ADT to the right. If you want to see the actual station number itself in this view, hit this scroll down bar under the TCDS legend and hit location ID. And it'll update that with the station ID of the station. That's helpful, and obviously if you look at a particular area and want to know it without actually clicking on the station itself and the information to the left-hand side, you can just quickly find the station number and have it set right above it. Some other items that are available, these tools up here in the top left as an example. This is a initial position, so it basically centers the map for state of Ohio. And then we're going to see a big blob here. But it allows you to move back to the center of the map. The other tool here, the other function, is this measuring distance. You can, I'm going to turn all the locations off for a second just to declutter the screen, but you can hit the measuring distance button here, click on a particular portion of the road, and go multiple locations if there's a change in the road or something, and then just double click, and then it gives you the distance in meters, feet, and miles. And you can do that anywhere out on the map. Turn it off, just re-click that button. And then you can also, if you need to print this map for any reason, it basically gives you a screenshot of the area in question. Generates it. Let me redo this, and we'll do it with an area. It gives you count locations. So as an example, if you wanted to send ADTs to a person that was interested in a specific area, just say someone wanted to know what are the ADTs around Johnstown. An easy way to provide that to them without walking them through the system completely would be to print out this map view. It generates the map, gives it to you in this view, and then you have the ability in this top right-hand portion to then download this as a PDF. And so you could save this file out and email this to whoever the person is that's interested in the information. So some quick features there of ways to move around the site. So looking at some of the specific items and detailed items, I want to move over to the left-hand side. So as I mentioned, if you want to find more information out about a specific site itself, you can actually just go over here, and I'm looking at this station here. It is location 29145, and if I click on this, it basically then gives me some more detailed information above it. But if I want to see the specific detail information related to the count, I click this View Detail hyperlink. And here it gives us all the information about the count, all the location information. If I want to see more detailed information, it gives you your location number, our NLF ID, or what's called the LRS ID within the system, our log point. It's located on West Coshocton Street. And then some of the historical information. But before I get down to that, again, you can click on this more detailed information to get county, the community, type count, what kind of category is it, part of our state program. You want to know the lat long of the location, speed limits, for functional class purposes, it's in a rural area. And then more detailed information about the count itself. We can see it was last counted actually in 2015, and it has an adjusted ADT value of 14,877. DHV calculated this year is 1,086. Has our K factor in it, and then has our car breakdown and then our truck breakdown for that specific location. So one of the things that's helped us out, as I mentioned, with consolidating all this information is rather than, if you want to see hourly data for this particular location, rather than going back to the spreadsheets that you used to have to do on our old web page, all this is in one location for this particular station. And to look at that information, you click on this eyeball to the left-hand side of the date. And then that gives you the specific information about that station. One of the things that we've begun doing with our data collection as well is we now are collecting, you can see here, we're collecting this data where it used to be done in 60-minute intervals. It's now, all of our count data is being collected in 15-minute intervals. So it gives you a little bit more detailed information for the specific location. So keep that in mind when you're looking at this information. So for this station, 15-minute breakdown, I want to see just some reports on the fly. I can run this bar graph, and it gives me a quick hourly breakdown for both directions by hour of day for this location. You also can do a line graph out here. Gives you a two-way, eastbound direction, westbound direction, and a quick bar graph of the data. And as you can see, as I scroll across here, at each one of these peaks, it's giving me the actual ADT by time of day, and or not the ADT, but the hourly data by that time of day. So a quick little graph, not for all, but for some that I think it can be handy. If you want to export this out as an Excel file, basically hit the View in Excel for this particular location. It does a quick download of the station and allows you then to export it out to the spreadsheet. Same report that you see out there. Quick way to get a report of this in an hourly, and as you can see, obviously 15-minute intervals. What's that? Yeah, I was looking at, that's, so let me go back here. You can see that in, if I click, then again, this station collects classification. And as you can see as well on the left-hand side, we've begun for all of our class sites collecting speed data as well. We didn't used to do that as part of the program, but speed's a byproduct of classification data, and the system then allows us to collect this data and store it. So we've begun making it available to these classification counts. So classification data for this station, same thing, click on the eyeball. And you can see here when the classification data is first displayed, it gives it to you in 60-minute intervals. You can change that then to a 15-minute interval to see that breakdown. And again, and one thing I didn't mention, if you want to just take a quick look at it, you've got two-way starting off. You can look at eastbound. You can look at westbound. And the same capabilities as I mentioned before is bar graph. This basically gives you a numbers of vehicles by vehicle breakdown. So the same 13 vehicle classes that we've always used. You've got your cars, you've got your light trucks, or what we call our Type 9s, these 5-axle, two-unit trucks for that particular station. Again, same thing. If I want to print it out, if I want to export it out into an Excel file, you have that ability to do that. So that's a quick look at short-term counts. Same thing with permanent count stations. You can look at permanent count stations in the same way. It obviously will give you a lot more data by day of week. One of the things I wanted to go to before we run out of time here is going through some of these searches. I'm not necessarily going to go through any of the advanced searches, but for some of the quick searches here, let's just say, for example, you want to look at a particular county. And in this choice here, what I'm going to do is I want to see all the stations for, let's just say, Ross County. So I have the ability just by typing in the county. So if you begin typing in a letter, it'll give you the options for that letter. But I already know I want to choose Ross. So I select Ross. Excuse me. But I also want to see all the Ross County counts that were collected in 2016 as an example. So I hit 2016, and then I'm going to hit the search button. And that gives you 124 locations for Ross County in 2016. I have the ability here then, I can scroll through each one of these by using the little scroll button here. Or if I want to see where they're at, I can hit the Locate All button just right above the information page. And so when I click on that, it updates the layers. Now, I had all of them turned on at one time. So let me hit the Locate All button one more time. I turned the TCDS toggle off. I'm going to hit Locate All again. It doesn't like me doing that, does it? So let me try this one more time. Hit the search. If I do the Locate All on that, you should see it on the page here of all the information of that particular county for those numbers.
That's it displays on the model.
Yeah, it should highlight them.
It's not even.
There they are right there. So they're mixed in with all the TCDS locations, and they come out as a light blue number. And you can see that as located here, as a light blue as part of the legend. So an easy way to scroll in and look at that is by hitting this active drag zoom here. And it updates the area to be able to see it. But you can get an idea then of the areas of the 2016 counts, at least in Ross County, of what's been taken. So then what I can do is click on this again to get information about this data. So you can see here, this is a location that's out on one of the local roads, 2016 count that we've collected. This was done here on June 2nd, and we actually had some hourly data for it. No, it's a volume count, yeah, total flow count. So majority of these local roads are just total flow counts. They're one of our cheaper counts, obviously, and for doing a lot of coverage throughout the state, it's an easy way for us, in an economical way for us to collect this data. So let's move to another search here. I'm going to clear Located Out. Turn those off. And I'm going to go home, and I'm going to do a search here on a specific area of road. Actually, changed my mind. I'm going to do an advanced search here for those of you that I know like to use permanent count stations. And a way to do that is, let's just go to a county as an example. And let's go to Stark. And the way I would do that is permanent station. Yes, I've got my county set. Scroll back up, and let's hit search. And then I'm going to hit, we have 8, and I'm going to hit Locate All. And then they popped up this time. So here's the locations of them within Stark County, and then you can do that for any of the area that you're looking for. You can do it on a district-wide basis. You can do it on a county-level basis. And then I can do, just as I did before with the short-term counts, click on the location and hit the View Detail. So you can see there, obviously, with the permanent count data, we have it by day of week. One of the items that we've done with permanent count data, at least for weigh and motion data, is as well made all of our weight data. So you can get an idea then of the average gross vehicle weight of that location. Again, classification, any of the speed data, and so forth. So, ton of information. And one of the things I also wanted to mention, at least with permanent count data, you can see here that the data that's available within the system, this was as of yesterday. So we process it through the MS2 QC checks, and as soon as it's approved, it's made available the following day. That was a difficult process using the old TKO system, and definitely one of the benefits of the MS2 system. Allows us to pretty much real time make this data available as it's collected. Same way with the short-term counts. As we process data, it's done as soon as it's accepted. We receive it from the consultants. It's processed, accepted. It's made available in the system. We don't wait until we have all the data in to create a traffic survey report now. So that's been one of the benefits of getting information out to you guys that are going to be using it. So it's definitely a benefit. Again, so a quick look on one way of searching ATRs. You could have done that for short-term counts. I'm going to go home. I'm going to clear these off my screen, and I do that by hitting the Clear Located button under the TCDS law or legend. So those are gone. I added my list here to do the address search. Again, the address search up here in the top right-hand corner. You can do, like I said, any address within the state of Ohio. So those are some quick run-throughs of examples of searches within the system. As I also mentioned, we're doing 15-minute intervals in all this data. The speed data is available on the system. And one of the other items that we now have available, let me see if I can find a station here, specifically 10125. Yeah. Thank you. One of the things you'll notice at the bottom of these screens are we have notes down here. And in these notes, the field sheets don't necessarily mean much. This gives us information on exactly where the count was collected. It may not exactly match the spot of where we have it in the system, but it should be extremely close. But this represents the actual count location of where the consultant took the count for us. In addition, we have pictures. We require the consultants to take pictures at these locations. And as you can see here, this is not the best example, and one thing that we are going to set some standards on taking pictures, but it's obviously hard to see. But you can zoom in on them. We're going to set some quality standards to be able to see these pictures better. But the intent here is we require them to take a picture in the primary direction of the count, the secondary direction of the count, and also we want to see the road tubes. We want to see how the road tubes are actually set on the location. And they're required to take this at the end of the count. We want to see what this station looks like once it's completed all its data collection. We don't want to see road tubes, obviously, perpendicular to the road. That's obviously not a good count. So it's kind of a quick field data check for them, and gives us some information on the station out in the field. So just some more information that we're making available. Not sure this is my favorite way of making this information for each station available in the system right now, but we're going to, it's better than nothing. So but it's out there and available for all you to use. So Victoria, I've gone through a quick rundown here of all these options. What I'm going to do with the time we have left is open it up to any questions anybody might have out here, okay?
That sounds great. So if you do have your phone line muted and you'd like to ask questions, please unmute your phone line by either pressing the mute button to take it off mute or pressing #6 on the phone's keypad. It's also known as #6 to unmute your phone line. Or alternately, on the bottom left-hand corner of the screen, you can type questions into the chat pod. We have had a couple of questions that already came through that way. So does anyone have any questions? Looks like we have one coming into the chat pod.
If there are, again, you all know how to get a hold of us here within the section. Our intent is to do some more training down the road here, a little bit more in detail. I'd like to get our consultant involved with it and develop a more detailed type training. So, okay, so Emily, if you only have an ATR number, what is the best way to search for it? Unfortunately, right now, it's located on. So, as an example, where you do that is within the advanced search.
Go home. No, it's on the front.
It's on the front.
Yeah, on the located on road. You type your ATR number on there.
That's a good example of that.
785.
785. So as an example with that, so just so you know a little background on these station numbers, the ATR number itself, we had to change them to short-term numbers and give them new numbers within the system to get them into the MS2 system. So, but permanent stations. But we've kept the old ATR number, and to do that, as an example, we'll go to located on, type in the number,
Right.
and then you'll see it out here. We've incorporated it into that database. Click on it, do a search.
What you're going to end up with, you might end up with some state route of if that number exists as a state route. So that first one there is state route 785. You can see it on the third line from the bottom of that top box. State route 785. So then go to the next.
Go to the next.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's located on alias there at the bottom. It shows 785. This is the best way we have right now.
You can see it down here. Yeah, like Lindsay said, that's the best way we have now. That's not the most efficient way to do this, and we know that. But we're going to work on trying to make that better accessible. We're not going to get rid of these station numbers just because, obviously, from a legacy standpoint. So we'll work on trying to make this a little bit more efficient for you guys to get access to it. So again, on this one, you can then hit the locate, and it should pop up on your map on the right-hand side to be able to find it. So hopefully that answers your question. Okay, so Lori, can you explain the grown from notation on the count? Let me see if I can find an example of that. Go back. And I think it's this right here. So it's grown. So you can see here that this count was originally counted in March of 2013. So what this is an identifier of is to let the user know that it's not an actual count anymore. It's a factored count. And so we've done that using the annual adjustment factors that were created. In this case here, we did those with legacy numbers, but for 2015, we actually used the 2015 factors from MS2. So it's just an indicator. As you can see out here on the right, it's grown from 2014. It gives you, a description of how it was generated. And that's what I'd mentioned. We're moving to generating an annual volume across the board on all these counts. So in theory, you should see a 2015 number for all of our stations that are out there. So that's an indicator of.
Do we have any other questions for our presenters? I don't see anyone else typing into the chat pod, or no one else has unmuted their phone. So with that, I think we're going to go ahead and wrap things up. Thank you so much, Dave and Lindsay and the other folks there in the room who are collaborating on this presentation. We appreciate it. For anyone else who's interested in upcoming webinars, including a webinar we're having tomorrow on the TMMS system, I've put a link to our webinars page on our website in the chat pod. If you're interested in looking at what's coming up and want to sign up for future webinars, I know that we have additional webinars we're working on planning with Dave and his group as well. So thank you very much. We appreciate everyone being on the call. Dave and Lindsay, is there anything you'd like to say in closing?
No. Yeah, thanks again, everybody. Feel free to contact us if there's any questions. We've had a lot of comments back. We're open to ways to improve the system. If you see anomalies within the system, let us know. We want to get those taken care of as quickly as possible. And so we, like I said, we're continuing to work on improving it and making the data better within the page. So if you see things like that, please feel free to let us know. But thanks for participating.
Yes, thank you. And we will send a link out once we have the recording of today's webinar available on the archives to everyone who was on the webinar. Thanks, everybody. Have a good day.